More than once, Tim Wise has suggested that he approves of violence against those who disagree. How does Tim Wise make a living? Well, in part by lecturing students. Your kids may have seen him speak. You've almost certainly heard a lot of people like Tim Wise. In America's schools, the revolution has been in progress for quite some time. Rochester School District in New York has created a Black Lives Matter themed lesson plan. The teaching materials dismiss America's bedrock institutions, indeed America itself, as inherently racist. Suggested questions for students include, how does mass incarceration function as a mechanism of racialized social control? One specific racial group is singled out for exclusive blame. The curriculum promotes a book entitled White Rage, the Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide. In other words, children, there's a reason hatred and inequality exist. These people did it. That's what your kids are learning right now. That's not an overstatement. Yesterday at Darien High School in Connecticut, Principal Ellen Dunn sent an email to parents in which she promised to increase the, quote, race-conscious education of our students. In order to achieve that, Dunn distributed materials from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, ironically, the Southern Poverty Law Center is itself a hate group that has been documented extensively. But now their agenda is the school's agenda. It's what your kids are learning. In Washington, D.C., an elementary school principal in the affluent northwest section of the city recently wrote a letter announcing that, quote, we need more white parents to talk to their kids about race, especially now. The letter singled out, quote, white staff and white community members, whom the principal alleged had committed, quote, both macro and microaggressions against staff of color. The principal did not specify what those crimes were. She didn't need to. Their skin color was their crime. This is a national theme. It pains us to tell you that, but it's true. It's incredibly destructive and dangerous. Countless school districts are now using the 1619 Project from the New York Times, for example, as a curriculum. That project is the work of an out-of-the-closet racial extremist called Nicole Hannah-Jones. Jones, for example, recently argued it is not violence to loot and burn stores. It's justified. Her propaganda is now mandatory in public schools in Buffalo, Chicago, Newark, Washington. Many parents, understandably, deeply resent this. It's deranged. It's racist. But others don't. They are allies, and they've joined in. One mother in London, where the cult is also spreading, posted this photo on Twitter. It's of her daughter on bended knee, holding a sign declaring her privilege. The Cultural Revolution has come to the West. What will the effects of this be? This is just a moment. It will end. How will we feel about it looking back? Years from now, how will that little girl with the sign remember her childhood? Her mother took Tim Wise's advice. She no longer has innocence. Will she be grateful for that? It's hard to imagine she will be. More likely, she will feel bitter and used because she has been used. And it's likely that many children growing up right now will feel the same way. Is there a single person who believes that this moment we're living through will end in racial harmony? That used to be what we wanted. Some of us still do want that. Is it even a goal anymore? It doesn't seem like it. Instead, it seems like many in power, it's very clear, in fact, that many in power are pushing hard for racial division, for hatred, for violence. And let's pray they don't get what they want. Tribal conflict will destroy a country faster than any plague. But keep in mind, as this insanity continues, that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Every action provokes a reaction. That's physics. We don't know where this is going. We don't want to know where it's going. The cult members should stop now, immediately, before more innocents get hurt, and they will if they don't. Matt Walsh is the host of The Matt Walsh Show, and we're happy to have him on the show tonight. So, Matt, before I ask you where this is going, and I'm not even sure I want to know, what do you make of people sacrificing their own children on the altar of this new religion?
Well, it's obviously abusive. It's deranged. I mean, it's everything that you said it was, and I think it goes even deeper than that. We have to think about how deep this sickness is. That what they're telling their kids and what kids have been told in college for decades now. You think about critical race theory and all of that. They're told that white people are inherently racist. So it's part of your nature. There's nothing you can do about it. You're racist no matter what. Other races cannot be racist. You're the only one that can be, which means that all you can do is admit that you're racist, or you can deny it. If you admit it, then you're racist. If you deny it, well, that's exactly what a racist would do. And so it reminds me a lot of like the Crucible, the witch trials or something, where it's you're accused of being a witch. You can deny it, which is exactly what a witch would do, and that proves you're a witch. Or you can admit it, and then you're a witch. And that's kind of what it is with racism now, and that's what kids are being indoctrinated into, and they grow up to be self-hating, and I think that's by design.
I mean, here's the problem there's so many problems, but I think most Americans of all colors want to live in a country where your race is not the most important thing about you. In fact, it's mostly irrelevant, right? That was the goal that you and I grew up with, and I still support that. But if you attack people like this, you will, over time, get a reaction. And some of those reactions are going to be ugly. Why would someone want to do that? Why would you want to create a tribalized society, a violent society? What's the point of doing that? Seriously.
Well, I think that's right. We know the point, though. I think is control. It's about controlling people, but what's going to happen if you tell people to hate themselves and that they're inherently sick and that there's nothing they can do about it and they're racist and they're bigots? If you hammer that into their heads over and over and over again from a young age, I think it could go one of two ways. One is that you just submit to it, and then you have a lot of these so-called white allies at the Black Lives Matter protests, literally bowing and kneeling before their masters in the Black Lives Matter movement. Or it could go the other way, and you're going to have people who go all the way to the other extreme and say,
right.
"Hey, you're calling me a bigot. I might as well just be one." And I think we're seeing that play out right now in society as we speak. And it's not going to get better. I think it's only going to get worse, unfortunately.
Okay, so this is all very obvious. This is a cul-de-sac. This doesn't end with a better society. It ends with something really awful. And that's very obvious. Like, there's nobody who doesn't know that. So where are the adults? Where are the Republican senators, for example? Where are the leaders standing up and saying, no, you have to stop talking like this right now. You're wrecking the country. You're going to get people killed. Stop talking like this. Where are the people who should be saying that?
Well, I mean, they're cowering under their bed, I think. They're terrified. This is something I've noticed. You talk about Republicans and conservatives. I mean, even a lot of conservative commentators out there are now too afraid, it seems like, to criticize Black Lives Matter. And that's why when we've seen these riots over the past 2 weeks, one line that you hear from conservatives a lot is that, well, it's all Antifa doing this. And Antifa, they're the ones rioting and looting. And they are doing it. And Antifa, they are domestic terrorists. But clearly, look, Black Lives Matter has been a violent movement from its inception. Did we forget about Ferguson? Did we forget about Baltimore? Did we forget about Dallas? 5 cops were executed in Dallas. That was before Antifa had risen to prominence. You can't blame that on Antifa. But what's happening is that there's this sanitization of Black Lives Matter and their ideology, their tenets, that's happening even on the right. And so if the right is buying into it, then I don't know where we go from there.
In a moment of crisis, cowardice is a sin. And there are a lot of cowards out there. I think we should remember their names and never give them authority again. And I hope you, Matt, will help remember their names, because I think it really matters to hold them accountable at some point. But thanks for coming on.